Hello and welcome to colleagues here in Sprint Review for 20.09.01. This will cover the work undertaken between the 1st of September to the 14th of September. Our sprint goal for this sprint has been to deliver the checklist alert functionality to the candidate entity, making it impossible to progress a candidate unless specified checklist items have been completed. Looking at the high-level items and to explain further, in this sprint we've been able to deliver checklist alerts against the candidate entity. This ensures that admins are able to stipulate certain checklist items as being mandatory to complete before the candidate can be processed against a requirement, among other workflows. I'll give a demo on this shortly. The list payments area within back office has been updated so that it is now a full mirror of the list invoices function with the ability to edit, print and email payments. As standard now, the back office reports will be shipped with the standard solution. This includes a timesheet report, commission report or consultant GP, an invoice daybook, a payment daybook. All existing clients without these reports will receive them following the upgrade. When accessing any documents that are links to a website URL, users will be given access to an open URL option from within document options. Users will be able to attach documents to meeting requests. And as part of an ongoing project, we've added the summary view to the candidate selection screen. We'll now go for a brief demonstration on the key features from this sprint. So the key item in this sprint is checklist alerts. Checklists is functionality that have been available in Colleague for some time, and that's essentially an option that you can enable against candidates, companies, requirements, placements, and it's ultimately a to-do list of action items to undertake against that entity record. And essentially the idea is that you use that to maintain compliance, to maintain internal policy. But previously, the checklist items have been effectively just that. It's just been a list of to-do items to do against a requirement or against a candidate. And effectively, what you can do is select that checklist item, enter in a requested date, an expiry date, a status field. But ultimately, the key item is whether or not it's been marked as complete and whether or not you've met that requirement against that checklist item. And these are all configurable within the admin area. What we've done in the sprint as part of this version is essentially within the checklist area add in against the candidate entity an ability to be able to stipulate checklist alerts against workflow. And what that means is against a candidate, for example, speculatively sending a candidate, you've got an option here of an alert or a stop as a warning mechanism if you were trying to process the candidate in this workflow and that checklist item was still outstanding. So ultimately you can put checklist alerts against workflow. So as an example here, we've got send CV from the requirement, and I've got that set to as an alert. If we go to a candidate and also go to requirements, sorry, and if we try and send this candidate try to send this candidate CV, you're going to see here that this candidate has incomplete checklist items, reference received. This workflow should not proceed unless you've completed the requested checklist items, but do you want to proceed? So because we have against this checklist item, we've got it as an alert rather than a stop, you can still proceed, but it gives you a warning that that checklist item is outstanding. If we set that to a stop, what that means is, and if we close that out and try again, what that means is that essentially the candidate can't complete because they've got that outstanding checklist item and of references perceived. So this workflow cannot proceed without this item sorted. And ultimately, what you can then do is, go to the associated candidate record, go to that checklist item, and providing that item's been marked as now complete, that then means that ultimately it's delivered in terms of the work that you had to do it against. And so when you run the workflow, obviously the workflow runs as expected. So the key functionality here is the ability against the candidate entity specifically to be able to stipulate a checklist and ultimately stop them from being processed against different workflows if outstanding checklist items haven't been delivered. Within the requirement area, we've got a cascading effect. So against here, if you set, for example, if you were long listed and you set to stop on the basis of that, it's going to update all the others beneath it to stop. You can still amend these as you need to, but there's a cascading effect there just to help with ensuring that you don't set it so that perhaps sending a CV as a stop, but somehow you're still able to process arranging an interview. The idea is to obviously have them as cascading. But that's the key update that's been made as part of this sprint. Just a couple of other points to cover. One is the ability to attach documents to meeting requests now. So previously, and anywhere in the system where you're sending an email, you've got this option to switch the email type to a meeting request. Previously, when you switched it to a meeting request, the option of attaching records or documents from either the current record or other records or even from your local machine, it wasn't there. So that's now been added to make sure that you can send attachments with meeting requests. Another key update we've made is to do with the ability when dealing with URLs in the documents area. First and foremost, that it will ensure that this message is displayed when you're selecting a URL now, and you'll have the option to be able to click to open the associated link from within here. Also within document options, you'll have the open URL option in here as well. So if you have attached a file or attached a link to a file that's perhaps being hosted in SharePoint, or if you have attached in a URL, you'll be able to click on that URL, open it up, and obviously it take you to that address. And if it's an attachment, or sorry, if it's a document that's been stored in SharePoint, again from open URL or from clicking on here, you'll be able to go to that associated SharePoint file that's been stored there. So dealing with URLs within the documents area has been approved upon during the course of this sprint. The next point to cover is the candidate selection screen and how the summary view has now been added to that. So within the candidate selection screen, when doing any searches for candidates, what you'll be able to do now is on selection of one or many rows, you'll have the option of the summary view top right hand side, just as you do within the search, and that obviously gives you the ability to obviously see some information about the record, scroll through records that you've selected if you selected more than one, view any associated documentation that's listed against the record, and obviously create history as well. That's all there as an option available to you. So the summary view has been added to the candidate selection screen. This is a long-standing project that we're going to have within the system, where we're going to be deploying the summary view to all of the tables so that you obviously have the means to be able to do this. But it's been done against the candidate selection screen as part of this sprint. As always, if you have any queries or feedback, please get in touch. I'll be keen to hear from you. Also, for those using Colleague 7, feel free to submit your enhancement requests via the support team or directly to me using the above email address. The next video will be the sprint review based on our now current development sprint, and as part of that, I'll include some quick demonstrations on the new functionality that's been added. Thanks for watching.